My name is Gilbert, and 3 months ago I thought I had it all figured out. 7 years with Caddy, 4 of them married. We met when I showed up to fix a burst pipe at her family's Christmas party. I was 26, covered in mud, and she was 25 in a cocktail dress, laughing as water sprayed everywhere. By the time I'd replaced their corroded supply lines, she'd given me her number. Her father, Gabriel, nearly had an aneurysm when she brought me home officially. His daughter dating the plumber? He'd wanted her to marry Preston, some trust fund kid from the yacht club. But Caddy chose me instead, and Gabriel never forgave either of us for it. Here's what Gabriel never understood. My business wasn't some small-time outfit. We did commercial and residential work, had municipal contracts, and pulled in over $3 million annually. But to Gabriel, I'd always be the guy who crawled under sinks. The text message that changed everything popped up on a Tuesday night. Katie was in the shower, her phone charging on the nightstand. The notification lit up right in front of me. Can't wait for tomorrow night. G says you told everyone we're just colleagues for now. The sender was Felix T. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. G meant Gabriel. Had to. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. This wasn't just Caddy having an affair. This was Gabriel orchestrating one. He'd found Caddy a replacement, someone from the right family, and he was actively managing the whole thing like one of his investment portfolios. My father-in-law was trying to trade me in. Part of me wanted to kick down the bathroom door right then. But my grandfather taught me something when I was 15. Never react when you're angry. Think first, then move. So I started planning. The next morning, I called Leonard Ross, a PI I'd used before. I need surveillance on my wife, I told him. Just saying it out loud made me feel sick. I think she's having an affair. I'll need details, Leonard said. No judgment, just business. I gave him everything I could remember. I'll have something for you in a week. That week was torture. I went through the motions at job sites while my marriage disintegrated in slow motion. Katie kissed me goodbye every morning like nothing was wrong. She asked about my day over dinner. She even initiated being intimate twice, which made me feel even worse. Leonard called on day 6. We should meet. You're not going to like what I found. We met at a diner on the south side. Leonard slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photos that made my chest tight. Katie and Felix at some upscale wine bar sitting way too close. Katie and Felix at the botanical garden where I'd proposed, holding hands like teenagers. Katie and Felix getting into a hotel elevator, his hand on her lower back. Started about 3 months ago, Leonard said, consulting his notes. Your father-in-law introduced them at some charity event you didn't attend. Hotel records show they've met 6 times. Always on nights your wife claimed she was working late. What else? My voice sounded dead even to my own ears. Gabriel's involved. Actively. Leonard slid over another photo showing Gabriel and Felix having lunch. He's been telling Felix that your marriage is basically over, that you're just waiting until after the holidays to make it official. He's also been hosting dinners where Felix comes as Caddy's date. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just an affair. This was orchestrated. There's more, Leonard continued. Felix is 28, Wharton MBA, works at Gabriel's firm. His father runs a private equity fund. Gabriel's been positioning this as much a business arrangement as a romance. I overheard him tell Felix that Caddy would come with significant assets after the divorce. I almost laughed. Assets. Like I was just going to hand everything over. That's when I decided I wasn't going to confront Katie. Not yet. Time to study the board. First stop, my lawyer. Victoria Mills had handled my business for years. When I told her what was happening, she didn't waste time on sympathy. Let's review your prenup. We'd signed one before the wedding. Katie had been insulted, said it meant I didn't trust her. But I'd explained it protected both of us, especially with me owning a business Victoria had drafted it ironclad. What was mine stayed mine, what was hers stayed hers. The house we lived in? Bought with my money before the wedding, solely in my name. The business? 100% mine. This is solid, Victoria confirmed. She gets nothing except half of your joint accounts. Your business, your property, all protected. What about Gabriel? I asked. Victoria raised an eyebrow. What about him? He's on my payroll, 3 years now. Consulting contract, $8,000 a month. For what services? Basically nothing. I kept him on because Katie asked me to. Victoria made notes. You can terminate that anytime. Month-to-month contract, right? Correct. Do it after filing. Maximum impact. She paused. Anyone else in the family on your payroll? Vincent, Katie's brother. He's good, actually works. And Eleanor's sister does bookkeeping. She's solid. Keep the ones who work. Cut the dead weight. Over the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. Every charge Caddy made on our joint credit card got screenshotted. Dinners at expensive restaurants I'd never been to, a weekend getaway upstate, lingerie from a boutique that I certainly hadn't seen. I opened new business accounts and redirected profits while keeping enough in joint accounts to avoid suspicion. I reviewed corporate documents, updated my will, changed insurance beneficiaries, but mostly, I waited for the right moment. That moment came when Gabriel called mid-November. "Gilbert, about Thanksgiving," he started, that condescending tone he always used. "Eleanor and I would love to have you and Katie join us. We're also hosting a young man from the firm, Felix. New to the area, doesn't have family nearby. You know how we are, can't stand anyone eating alone on Thanksgiving." "I'll bet you can't," I thought. "Sounds great, Gabriel. What can we bring?" "Just yourselves," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. He thought he was cornering me. What he didn't realize was that he'd just handed me the perfect stage. The week before Thanksgiving, I made final preparations. New suit, charcoal gray, cut well enough to show I wasn't just some grease monkey. I wore the expensive watch Katie had given me for our anniversary. I wanted to look successful when their world imploded. I also called my brother Wesley and best friend Arthur. "I need you both on standby Thanksgiving evening. Can't explain yet, but I might need backup." "What kind of backup?" Wesley asked. "The kind where I might need a ride, or just someone to drink with." "Say less," Arthur said. "We'll be ready." Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and clear. Katie was cheerful at breakfast, humming while she got ready. She wore a cream-colored dress that Gabriel probably bought her, paired with pearls that definitely came from Felix based on credit card statements. "You look nice," I told her, and I meant it. She was beautiful. That was never the problem. "Thanks," she said, kissing my cheek. "You clean up pretty well yourself." The drive to Gabriel's estate took 20 minutes. He lived in one of those neighborhoods where houses had names instead of numbers. Gabriel answered the door wearing a sweater that probably cost what I paid my crew for a week. "Gilbert, Katie, so glad you could make it," he said, all false warmth. His eyes lingered on my suit, probably calculating the cost. "Come in, everyone's dying to see you." The living room was full of the usual suspects. Eleanor, Katie's mother, gave me a genuine smile. She'd always been kind. One of the few Vincent and his wife Rebecca were there, and Vincent gave me a nod. He was good people, probably the only family member who didn't look down on me. Various aunts, uncles, cousins, and some of Gabriel's business associates filled out the room. And there, sitting on the sofa next to Gabriel's usual chair, was Felix. He was exactly what I'd expected from surveillance photos. Mid-20s, expensive haircut, nice watch, the kind of guy who'd never had a callus in his life. When he saw Katie, his whole face lit up amateur move. "Katie," Gabriel called out, "come meet Felix. I've told him so much about you." I watched Katie's performance. She played it perfectly casual, extending her hand like they'd never met. "Felix, nice to meet you. My father mentioned you joined the firm recently." "That's right," Felix said, holding her hand just a fraction too long. "About 6 months ago, Gabriel's been an incredible mentor." I stood there with a pleasant expression, playing the oblivious husband. A few people tried to include me in conversation, but I could feel anticipation in the room. Some of Gabriel's friends watched with barely concealed amusement. They knew, or suspected. This was entertainment for them. Dinner was called at 6. The seating arrangement was exactly what I'd expected. Gabriel put Felix right next to Caddy, while I got relegated to the far end between Uncle Bernard, who was already 3 glasses deep in wine, and Rebecca, who'd always been decent to me. "How's business, Gilbert?" Eleanor asked, being polite. "Can't complain," I said. "Just landed a contract for the new medical plaza downtown. 8-month project." "That's wonderful," Eleanor said warmly. Gabriel cut in, voice dripping with condescension. "Yes, well, there's always demand for tradesmen. People will always need their toilets fixed." A few people chuckled. Vincent looked uncomfortable. Rebecca put her hand on my arm under the table. "True enough," I agreed easily. "Same way people will always need someone to manage their money, even if most don't really understand where it goes." Gabriel's smile tightened. "Point to me." The conversation moved on. Gabriel kept steering things back to Felix, praising his education, his family background, his instincts for high-stakes deals. "Felix graduated from Wharton," Gabriel announced during the salad course. "Top of his class. His thesis on emerging markets was actually published." "Impressive," I said. "I didn't go to business school myself. Learned on the job, started working for my grandfather when I was 16. "Different paths for different people," Gabriel said dismissively. "Some are suited for academia and strategic thinking. Others are more hands-on." The insult landed exactly as intended. Vincent shifted uncomfortably. Rebecca's grip on my arm tightened. "You're right," I said calmly. "I've always been hands-on. Built my business from the ground up. Well, my grandfather started it, but I grew it. Took a 3-man operation and scaled it to 12 employees, multiple municipal contracts." Revenue's up 40% year over year. But you're right, definitely more hands-on than theoretical. I watched Gabriel's jaw clench. He didn't like being reminded my blue-collar business was successful. Felix, either oblivious or trying to smooth things over, jumped in. I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs. Takes real grit to build something. Thank you, I said. What about you, Felix? Your father's in finance too? Private equity, Felix confirmed. He's based in Connecticut, old money area. Nice, Gabriel said with obvious approval. Felix's family has been in finance for 3 generations. Must be easier starting with a foundation, I observed. My grandfather came over with nothing, worked his way from apprentice to master plumber to business owner, taught me everything, not just about pipes, but about business. How to read a contract, manage people, know when someone's trying to take advantage. The table got quieter. Katie was staring at her plate. That's quite a story, Felix said, seeming genuine. My father always says people who built their wealth appreciate it more than those who inherited it. Smart man, your father, I said, meeting his eyes. Hopefully he also taught you due diligence. Make sure you understand what you're getting into before you commit, especially when it seems too good to be true. Felix blinked, confused. Katie had gone pale. Gabriel was glaring at me. The main course arrived. Turkey, stuffing, all the traditional fixings. Eleanor had outdone herself, but the tension at the table made everything taste like sawdust. Gabriel kept trying to steer conversation towards safe topics, but everything felt forced. So Felix, one of Gabriel's business associates said, what brought you to our area? Besides the opportunity at Gabriel's firm, of course. Fresh start, really, Felix said. Boston was getting old. Too many people from my past, if that makes sense. Running from a broken heart? One of the aunts asked with a knowing smile. Felix laughed uncomfortably. Something like that. Well, a handsome young man like you won't stay single long in this town, the aunt continued. Plenty of lovely young ladies looking for someone with your credentials. Gabriel practically preened. Actually, Felix has been keeping himself quite busy with work. Haven't had much time for a social life, have you? Not really, Felix said, but his eyes flicked to Katie for just a second. Just long enough for me to catch it. Vincent, bless him, tried to change the subject. Gilbert, didn't you say you were bidding on that municipal project? The water treatment facility? Already won it, I said. $800,000 contract. Breaks ground in January. Gabriel's fork paused halfway to his mouth. $800,000? For plumbing work? Commercial and municipal contracts pay well, I said mildly, especially when you have the reputation and crew to handle complex projects. This one's a 18-month timeline, requires specialized equipment and certified installers. Not everyone can do that level of work. I had no idea plumbing could be so lucrative, one of Gabriel's friends said, and I couldn't tell if he was being sincere or condescending. Most people don't, I agreed. They think it's just unclogging drains and fixing leaky faucets. But commercial work, municipal infrastructure, industrial systems, that's where the real money is. My company did $3.2 million in revenue last year. The table went silent. Gabriel's face had gone red. $3.2 million? Eleanor repeated, looking genuinely surprised. Gilbert, I had no idea your business was so successful. Why would you? I asked reasonably. It's not something that comes up in casual conversation. But yeah, we've been growing steadily. This year we're projected to hit 3.8. That's remarkable, Vincent said, and he sounded genuinely impressed. I knew the business was doing well, but that's incredible growth. Gabriel was practically vibrating with rage. This wasn't how this dinner was supposed to go. He'd set this up to humiliate me, to show everyone how his daughter had outgrown her blue-collar husband. Instead, I was casually discussing revenue that probably exceeded his firm's annual intake. Of course, Gabriel said tightly. Revenue isn't the same as profit. I'm sure your overhead is quite high with all those employees and equipment costs. Overhead's about 40%, I said, which is actually pretty good for this industry. Lots of businesses run 60-70% overhead, but we're efficient. I learned from my grandfather. Keep good people, pay them well, maintain equipment properly, and waste nothing. Sound business principles, one of the other guests said. Uncle Bernard, who'd been quietly working his way through the wine, suddenly spoke up. This whole conversation reminds me of something from years ago. Had a client who was married but told everyone he was single. His father-in-law was even helping him court another woman, setting up meetings, vouching for his character. The table fell silent except for silverware scraping plates. Turned out, Bernard continued, clearly tipsy, the marriage wasn't over at all. The father-in-law had lied about everything to make the guy seem like a better prospect. When the truth came out, the wife took him for everything. The other woman lost her investment and reputation for getting involved. Whole thing was a disaster. Bernard, Eleanor said gently, maybe we should— I'm just saying, Bernard interrupted. People should be honest about their situations. All their situations. Financial, personal, marital. Saves everyone trouble in the long run. I raised my glass slightly in Bernard's direction. Wise advice. Felix looked deeply uncomfortable. Katie was staring at Bernard like he'd just set the table on fire. Gabriel was practically vibrating with rage. Well, Gabriel said tightly, shall we move on to dessert? The pumpkin pie was perfect, but I barely tasted it. The tension had reached a breaking point. Gabriel kept shooting me looks like he was calculating whether he could get away with murder. Eleanor looked increasingly confused and concerned. Vincent and Rebecca were having some kind of silent conversation with their eyes. Finally, during coffee, Gabriel made his move. He stood up, wine glass in hand, and looked around the table with this satisfied smile. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Family means everything to us, and we're fortunate to have such wonderful people in our lives. He gestured toward Felix. We're especially pleased to welcome new friends. This is Felix. Brilliant young man, excellent pedigree, real future ahead of him. He paused for effect, his smile widening. I think he'll fit into our family perfectly, especially once Katie finalizes her divorce from Gilbert. The room exploded. Eleanor gasped. Vincent dropped his fork. Rebecca grabbed my arm. Felix looked like he'd been punched, and Katie just sat there, frozen. But I was ready. I set down my knife and fork, took a slow sip of wine, and smiled. The room had gone completely silent. I could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, the slight hiss of the radiator, the catch in Eleanor's breath. That's interesting, Gabriel, I said calmly. Did you mention to Felix here that the business supporting this family, including the mortgage on this house actually, is mine? Not Katie's. Mine. Gabriel's face went white, actually drained of color. I'm sorry, Felix said, looking between Gabriel and me. I don't understand. Gabriel told me that. Let me guess, I interrupted, still calm. Gabriel told you that Katie and I were separated? That our marriage was basically over? That we were just waiting until after the holidays to make it official? Felix nodded slowly, looking sick. He lied. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. About a lot of things. For instance, did Gabriel mention that his consulting contract with my company, the one paying him $8,000 a month, is for a project that finished 18 months ago? I unfolded the paper and slid it across the table toward Gabriel. This is your contract termination notice. Effective immediately. Thanks for 3 years of basically doing nothing. Eleanor's mouth fell open. Vincent was staring at his father like he'd never seen him before. Did Gabriel tell you, I continued, turning to Felix, that I own the company outright? That it grosses $3.2 million annually? That I have contracts with 3 municipalities, and we're about to break ground on an $800,000 medical plaza project? Felix shook his head mutely. Interesting, because he's been telling everyone for years that I'm just a plumber. Like it's something to be ashamed of. I stood up, pulling another document from my inside pocket. What else didn't Gabriel tell you, Felix? Did he mention that Katie and I have an ironclad prenup? That she has 0 ownership in my business? That the house we live in is solely in my name? Gilbert, Katie said, her voice barely a whisper. Please. Please what? I asked. Please don't make a scene. That's rich, considering your father just announced my divorce to a room full of people. I turned back to Felix. Did she tell you we were separated? Yes, Felix said quietly. She said you were sleeping in separate rooms, that you'd grown apart, that you were keeping up appearances until after the holidays. We were intimate 3 nights ago, I said flatly. Katie made a sound like a wounded animal. In our bed, in the house that I own. So either she was lying to you, or she's got some serious issues. Oh my God, Eleanor breathed. I unfolded the second document. This is our joint credit card statement for the past 3 months. $18,000 in charges. Want to guess what they're for, Gabriel? I didn't wait for an answer. Dinners at upscale restaurants 7 times. Hotels 6 different occasions. A weekend getaway upstate. Lingerie, flowers, champagne. All charged to an account that I fund. I pulled out another sheet. This is from my private investigator, Leonard Ross. Very thorough. I have photographs of Caddy and Felix at the botanical garden where I proposed. At restaurants I've never been to. Getting into hotel elevators. All time-stamped. All documented. The silence was absolute. Felix, I said, my voice almost gentle now. I don't entirely blame you. Katie's beautiful and charming, and Gabriel can be very convincing. But let me tell you what you were really getting into. I walked toward Felix, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Gabriel wasn't just setting you up with his daughter. He was engineering a financial arrangement. Gabriel's firm has been struggling for 2 years. The consulting fees from me? That was keeping him afloat. When he realized I was actually successful, more successful than him, he couldn't stand it. I turned to Gabriel. You thought if you could get Caddy to divorce me and marry Felix, you'd look better. Old money son-in-law, proper pedigree, someone from your world. And you assumed I'd be so desperate to keep Katie that I'd settle favorably, maybe even sell her part of the business. Gabriel's hands were shaking. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out another document. This is a recorded conversation between you and Felix. Leonard got it 3 weeks ago when you had lunch downtown. Want me to play it? Or should I just tell everyone the highlights? You wouldn't dare, Gabriel hissed. Try me. I looked at Felix again. On this recording, Gabriel tells you that once Katie divorces me, she'll have significant assets from the settlement. He says the house is worth $750,000, that my business is worth at least $2 million, and that I'd probably give Katie 40% to make things easy. He literally tells you that Katie comes with a dowry. Eleanor stood up abruptly. Gabriel, is this true? Eleanor, sit down. Is this true? Her voice shook. Gabriel didn't answer. That was answer enough. I turned to the rest of the room. Here's what's actually happening. I filed for divorce 2 days ago. Katie will get her share of our joint savings, about $43,000. Everything else is protected by the prenup. The house, the business, my assets, all mine. I looked at Vincent. Vincent, you're a good project manager. You pull your weight. You're staying on, assuming you want to. Rebecca, your sister does our bookkeeping. She's excellent. She's staying too. Then I looked at Gabriel. But you? Done. Contract's terminated, and I'm removing you as co-signer on business credit lines. I believe you used those guarantees to refinance your vacation house. Hope you have a backup plan for those payments. Gabriel's face went from white to red. You can't do this. I absolutely can. And I am. I walked back to my seat and drained my wine glass. Katie, I'll be moving my stuff out this weekend. You can stay in the house through year-end, spelled out in the divorce papers. After that, you'll need to find somewhere else to live. I'd suggest not with your parents, since Gabriel's about to have his own financial problems. Gilbert, Eleanor said, tears in her eyes. I had no idea. I swear I didn't know. I believe you, I said honestly. You've always been kind to me, Eleanor. I'm sorry this is how you had to find out. But I don't understand, Felix said, looking devastated. Katie, you told me, you said. She lied, I said simply. They both did. Gabriel wanted to upgrade his son-in-law, and Caddy went along with it. Whether because she wanted you or wanted to please her father, that's between you two. But Felix, you need to understand something. I picked up my jacket. Gabriel showed you pictures of me in work clothes. Told you I was barely educated, that I smelled like pipe dope and barely pulled 50 grand a year. All lies. I have a bachelor's degree in business management. I built a multi-million-dollar company. And that smell Gabriel complained about? That's honest work. Something he wouldn't recognize. I looked around the room one last time. Vincent, Rebecca, see you Monday. Eleanor, I hope you're okay. To everyone else, happy Thanksgiving. As I headed toward the door, Felix called out. Gilbert, wait. I need to. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Gabriel showed me documents, photos, he told me. I turned back. Felix, you seem decent. You got played. But you need to ask yourself, if Gabriel was willing to lie this extensively, if Katie was willing to be with both of us while lying to everyone, what does that say about them? And what does it say about you that you didn't do your own research before getting involved with a married woman? Felix flinched. That's not fair, Katie said, finally finding her voice. You're trying to humiliate me. No, Katie, I said. Your father did that when he announced my divorce without my knowledge. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth before he starts spreading his version. I pulled out one final document and set it near Eleanor. This is for you. Complete accounting of every dime Gabriel pulled from my company over 3 years. $288,000 in consulting fees for minimal work. If you're smart, Eleanor, you'll get a lawyer before Gabriel burns through whatever's left trying to save face. Gabriel lunged toward me, but Vincent caught his father's arm. Dad, don't. I walked out of Gabriel's house for the last time. The cold November air felt like freedom. My phone rang at 7:30 the next morning. Unknown number. Gilbert, this is Felix. His voice was tight. I ended it. Last night after you left. I told Caddy I couldn't be with someone who'd lied that completely. Okay, I said, not sure what else to say. Gabriel called me after. He was furious, called me weak, said I was just like the plumber, said I'd never amount to anything. Felix let out a bitter laugh. I think that was supposed to be an insult, but after everything, it felt more like a compliment. Felix. He showed me pictures, Felix interrupted. Of you in work clothes, covered in mud. Said you were barely making ends meet, essentially a glorified janitor. I believed him because why would I question it? He's Gabriel Miller. He runs an investment firm. I'm sorry you got caught up in this, I said. I'm sorry I was stupid enough to believe it without checking. Felix was quiet for a moment. I'm leaving the firm, probably leaving the state. I don't want to work for someone who'd orchestrate something like this. That's probably smart. For what it's worth, Felix said, you handled that better than I would have. After Felix hung up, I sat on my back deck with coffee, watching the sun come up. My phone buzzed with texts. Wesley checking in, Arthur asking if I needed anything, Vincent apologizing profusely for his father's behavior. I answered them all briefly. The divorce proceedings went exactly as Victoria predicted. Katie didn't contest anything. She couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming, and the prenup was airtight. She got her share of joint savings and personal belongings. Everything else stayed with me. I never saw Gabriel at another family function. Eleanor filed for separation 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, citing irreconcilable differences and financial impropriety. Word got around about what he'd done, and his firm lost 3 major clients within a month. Last I heard, he'd closed the business and taken a junior analyst position elsewhere. Vincent stayed on as project manager. I should have known something was wrong, he told me one day at a job site. Dad kept asking about your business, what you were worth. I thought he was just being nosy. Not your fault, I said. Your father's choices are his own. 2 months after the divorce finalized, I ran into Katie at the grocery store. She looked thinner, tired. We did that awkward dance where you both see each other and have to decide whether to acknowledge it. She approached me. Gilbert, hi. Katie, how are you? Good, I said honestly. Business is good. Life's good. You? She looked away. I'm living with my mom. Dad and her split up. He's not doing well financially. I heard. I made a mistake, she said quietly. A huge mistake. My father was in my ear constantly, telling me I'd married beneath myself, that I deserved better. And then Felix was there, and he was exactly what my father always wanted for me, and I just went along with it, I finished. Yeah. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. You were always good to me. You supported my career. You never made me feel bad about my family, even though my father was awful to you. And I repaid that by cheating and letting my father try to destroy you. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Are you seeing anyone? She asked. No, and I'm not looking. I'm good on my own right now. I'm glad, she said, seeming to mean it. You deserve to be happy, Gilbert. After she left, I finished my shopping and drove home. The house was quiet. No more reality TV blaring, no more makeup taking over the bathroom, no more arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes. Just quiet. And it was good I thought that would be the end of it. 6 months later, my peaceful existence got disrupted at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I was in my garage organizing tools when I heard tires screeching in my driveway, then pounding on the front door. Gilbert! Gilbert! Open this dang door! Katie, and she sounded drunk. I walked to the front door but didn't open it. Katie, go home. If you need to talk, call your lawyer. I'm not calling my freaking lawyer. More pounding. You ruined my life. You destroyed my family. I didn't do anything. Your father did that on his own. Let me in. No. The pounding stopped. For a moment, I thought she'd left. Then I heard glass shatter. My living room window. Good grief, I muttered, pulling out my phone and dialing 911. I need police. My ex-wife just broke my window and I think she's trying to get inside. I could hear Caddy in my living room now, screaming and breaking things. The TV made a sick crashing sound. Picture frames hit walls. She was tearing the place apart. Sir, officers are en route, the dispatcher said. Are you safe? I'm in the garage, doors locked. It felt like forever, but was probably only 5 minutes before I heard sirens. The destruction stopped. Then I heard Caddy yelling at police, heard them trying to calm her down, heard the distinctive click of handcuffs. An officer knocked on the garage door. Sir? Gilbert? It's safe to come out. I opened the door to find 2 patrol officers and Caddy in handcuffs on my driveway. She was crying and still screaming. He ruined everything. He took everything from me. He's still just a stupid plumber and he thinks he's better than us. Ma'am, you need to calm down, one officer said. I'm pressing charges, I told them. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, whatever else applies. Are you sure? The officer asked. She's clearly intoxicated and emotional. You were married. Were, I emphasized. Past tense. She broke my window, destroyed my property, and is trespassing. I'm pressing charges. The officer nodded. Your call, sir. They put Katie in the squad car, still screaming about how I'd destroyed her family, how I was beneath her, how I'd always be just a tradesman. I gave my statement, took photos of the damage. Destroyed TV, broken frames, dishes shattered all over the kitchen. They arrested her for criminal mischief, trespassing, and destruction of property. After they left, I stood in my living room, looking at the damage. A few hours to clean up, maybe $1,000 to replace everything. But that was it. Just stuff. A year later, I'm sitting on my deck on a Sunday morning, coffee in hand, looking at quarterly earnings. We cleared $3.8 million this year, our best yet. The house is quiet, peaceful. I finished all those renovation projects I'd been putting off. Eleanor calls occasionally to check in. She's doing better, divorced from Gabriel, living smaller but happy. Wesley jokes that I'm the most eligible bachelor in town, but I'm not interested. The best part? I'm saving almost $4,000 a month now. No more designer clothes, expensive dinners, subsidizing Gabriel's lifestyle. Because here's what I've learned. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. Being good at what you do, even if people look down on it. Gabriel thought being a plumber was shameful, that working with your hands meant lesser. But I'm sitting here on my self-built deck, looking at a report showing I made more this year than Gabriel probably made in 5, in a house I own outright, with a business that's thriving. Turns out crawling under sinks pays pretty darn well, and I don't answer to anyone anymore.